The first thing I registered was the smell of the hospital floor cleaner. Not my daughter-in-law's perfume, not my son's cologne. Just that sharp chemical bite that meant something had gone wrong enough to bring me here. My phone buzzed in my coat pocket. I was 63 years old, sitting in a plastic chair in the cardiac wing of St. Raphael's Medical Center in Cleveland, watching my son Marcus breathe through an oxygen mask after his second heart attack in 4 years. He was 41. He looked smaller than I had ever seen him look. His hands were folded on top of the thin blanket like he was already preparing for something I wasn't ready to think about. I pulled out my phone. It was a text from my daughter-in-law, Renee. I needed you to know before you hear it from someone else. I've already taken what's mine from the joint account. I'm in Denver with Daniel. I'm not coming back. Tell Marcus when he's stable. I'm sorry, Walter. I read it 3 times. Then I set the phone face down on my knee and looked at my son. The monitor beeped. Steady. Slow. His chest rose and fell. I had met Renee at their wedding 14 years ago. I had danced with her at the reception. I had driven 4 hours to babysit their daughter Lily when she was born, and I had driven 4 hours back the next morning so Marcus and Renee could sleep. I lent them $11,000 when the furnace broke the same winter Marcus lost his job. I had never asked for it back. I had sat across from Renee at every Thanksgiving and Christmas and Easter for over a decade. And I had believed, the way you believe in things you have no reason to question, that she was where she was supposed to be. The monitor beeped again. I put my phone back in my pocket. My son did not need to know this yet. What he needed was to breathe. The cardiologist came in just after 7 in the morning. He was younger than Marcus, which still startled me, the way it had started startling me about doctors and police officers and the men who fixed my roof. He explained what had happened in the language of medicine, which I had learned to translate over the past 4 years into plain human terms. The damage was real. The recovery was possible. The changes required were not optional this time. I nodded. I asked the questions I had written in the small notebook I kept in my breast pocket. I had started carrying that notebook after his first heart attack. Old habit from 30 years of teaching high school history. Write it down. The things you don't write down disappear. After the doctor left, Marcus opened his eyes and looked at me. You stayed, he said. His voice was rough. Where else would I be? He almost smiled. Renee didn't come? I kept my face the way I had learned to keep it in 30 years of a classroom when a student said something that required a careful answer. Level. Unhurried. She's not here yet, I said. You focus on resting. He closed his eyes. I sat back down in the plastic chair. I had told him a partial truth. She was not here. The yet was the lie. I was 63 years old, and I had just lied to my son in a hospital room, and I was not sorry about it. Some things could wait until a man could sit up without help. They moved Marcus to a regular room by afternoon. He slept most of it. I went down to the cafeteria once and ate something I could not later remember, and came back up and sat with him. His daughter Lily was in school in Columbus, 2 hours away, living with Renee's mother. I had spoken to her on the phone the night before, when the ambulance had first taken Marcus in. She had been calm in the way children are calm when they are terrified and do not want to show it. Is Daddy going to be okay? She had asked. She was 9 years old. She had her father's eyes, and I was beginning to understand her father's habit of asking the direct question. Yes, I had told her. Your daddy is going to be okay. I intended to make that true by whatever means were available to me. That evening, when Marcus was more alert and had eaten the hospital food without complaint, I told him. I did not ease into it. I had considered easing into it and decided against it. He was 41 years old. He had just had a heart attack. He was also my son, which meant he could hear hard things and remain standing. I had raised him to do that, even when it cost me something to watch him do it. I got a message from Renee yesterday morning, I said, while you were still in the cardiac wing. He looked at me. I told him what the message had said. I used her words because they were the accurate ones, and he deserved accuracy. Denver. Daniel. The joint account. Not coming back. He was quiet for a long time. The monitor beeped. The room smelled like institutional soap and the particular stillness of places where people wait for news. "How long have you known?" he finally asked. "Since yesterday morning. You sat here all day and didn't tell me. You were on oxygen, Marcus." He looked at the ceiling. His jaw worked. Then, after a while, he said something that I had not expected. He said, "I think I already knew." I waited. Not about Denver, not about Daniel specifically, but I knew something had been wrong for a long time, and I kept. He stopped. I kept thinking it would correct itself, like it was a phase, like we'd get through it. "That's not a weakness," I said. "It's not a strength either." I didn't argue with him. He wasn't wrong. He was in the hospital for 6 days. On the 3rd day, he asked me to look at the joint account on his laptop. I'd brought his laptop from the house when I'd stopped by to pick up clothes, using the spare key he'd given me years ago. I was not prepared for what I saw. Renee had not taken what was hers. That was the word she had used in her text, "What's mine?" and it had the particular quality of a phrase someone rehearses before they send it. What she had actually done was take what was theirs, $47,000 from a savings account they had built together over 11 years. The checking account had been emptied down to $412. The money market account they had opened for Lily's college fund had been reduced by half. I wrote the numbers in my notebook. I am a retired high school history teacher. I spent 30 years watching young people make decisions whose consequences they could not yet see. I had learned, in that time, to feel the shape of a situation before I named it. The shape of this situation was not impulsive. The shape of this situation was not impulsive. The shape of this situation was planned. She didn't just leave, I told Marcus when I showed him the numbers. She prepared. He looked at the screen for a long time. "The college fund," he said. "Yes, Lily's money. Half of it. $3,100. He closed the laptop carefully and set it on the bedside table. That carefulness told me more than anything he could have said. He was holding himself very still, because the alternative was something he didn't want to do in a hospital room. "Dad," he said, "I know. I need you to help me. I know that too." I called an attorney that same afternoon. Her name was Patricia Hollis, and she came recommended by a man I had taught in 1987, who was now a judge in Cuyahoga County, and had stayed in touch the way a handful of students do, the ones who remember that a teacher once told them they were capable of more than they believed. I left a message. She called back within the hour. I explained the situation while standing in the hallway outside Marcus's room, keeping my voice even, watching a nurse push a cart down the corridor. Patricia Hollis listened without interrupting. When I finished, she said, "The college fund withdrawal is a problem for her. That money has a specific intended beneficiary." "His daughter," I said. "Yes. Courts take a dim view of that. What about the rest of it?" "Marital assets." "Marital assets. Depending on how the accounts were titled, taking everything could constitute dissipation. We'll want to document everything from the moment the funds left, timestamps, balances before and after, any communications. I had already taken screenshots. I told her that. There was a brief pause. "Good," she said. "Your son is lucky to have you." I did not feel lucky was the right word. I felt like a man who had been handed a shovel in a situation that required a shovel and who was old enough to know that standing there holding it was not the same as using it. Renee called Marcus on the 4th day. He told me about it that evening. He had answered. I understood why, even if I would have advised against it. 14 years is not nothing. 14 years is a whole architecture of a life. And when it collapses, you stand in the rubble for a while before you understand you are not going to rebuild it. You answer the phone because you are still standing in the rubble. She had told him she was sorry. She had told him that things between them had been broken for a long time. She had told him that she and Daniel had been seeing each other for nearly 2 years, which meant that everything that had happened in that 2 years, every dinner, every holiday, every Tuesday evening when Marcus had come home from cardiac rehab and she had asked how it went, had a second layer underneath it that Marcus had not known about. She asked about Lily, Marcus said. What did you say? I said Lily was fine. I said my lawyer would be in touch. He paused. Then I hung up. I nodded. It felt like the right thing to do. It was the right thing to do. He looked at his hands. She took Lily's college money, Dad. Half of it. Half of it. Half. She looked at an account that said Lily on it, and she took money out of it to go to Denver with a man she'd been seeing for 2 years while I was having a heart attack. He said it flatly, not loudly. The flatness was worse than the loudness would have been. What kind of person does that? I didn't have a clean answer for him. I had been a teacher long enough to know that people are capable of more than we expect from them in both directions, and that the cruelty of people we have loved is always more disorienting than the cruelty of strangers. But he wasn't asking me for a lesson. He was asking me to sit with him in the fact of it. So I sat with him. And after a while he said, okay. The way you say okay when something is not okay, but you have decided to proceed anyway. And I recognized that okay because I had heard it in my own voice the morning after his mother died, when I woke up and understood that I was going to have to continue living without her. He had learned it from me. I was glad, for the first time, that he had. He came home to the house 8 days after the ambulance had taken him away from it. I drove him. The house was a 4-bedroom colonial in a suburb east of Cleveland that he and Renee had bought 7 years ago. I had helped them move in. I had painted the back bedroom that Lily called the purple room because she had asked me to, because she had said nobody painted as carefully as Grandpa Walter. Walking in behind Marcus, I noticed the things that were missing before I could stop myself from noticing. A painting from above the couch, 2 framed photographs that had been on the hallway console. The console itself. She had come back for things, and she had done it while he was in the hospital, which meant she had known, at some point during those 8 days, that he was in a hospital, and she had used the time to come back for the console and the framed photographs. Marcus stood in the middle of the living room and looked around. She took the console, he said. I see that. Lily liked that console. She used to put her backpack on it when she came home from school. He was quiet for a moment. I'll get another one. He said it the way you say things you need to hear yourself say. I didn't point out that the console wasn't the point. He knew what the point was. The console was just the thing you could name without your voice breaking. Lily came the following weekend. I drove to Columbus to get her. She was quiet in the car for most of the 2 hours, watching the highway out the window with a 9-year-old's version of composure, which is its own kind of heartbreaking. About 40 minutes out, she said, is Mom not coming back? I kept my hands on the wheel. I had thought about how to answer this question since the morning I had read Renee's text. Your mom and your dad are going to need some time to figure things out, I said, but your dad is home and he's getting better, and you're going to see him tomorrow morning. That's not what I asked. She had her father's eyes. She also, it turned out, had his way of asking the direct question. No, I said. Your mom is not coming back right now. She turned back to the window. A long time passed. Is it because of me? She asked. No, I said, and I said it the way I had learned to say the things that needed to be heard without any hesitation around them. This has nothing to do with you. Nothing that happened is because of you. You are exactly who you're supposed to be, and your dad loves you, and I love you, and that is not changing. She was quiet again. Then she said, Okay, Grandpa. She said it the way her father had said, okay, in the hospital room. I recognized it from further back than that. I recognized it from my own voice on a morning 30 years ago. Somehow, in the way that things pass from one generation to the next without anyone intending it, she had learned it too. Patricia Hollis filed the papers 3 weeks after Marcus came home. The dissipation claim on the college fund was documented. The record showed the timeline of withdrawals relative to Marcus's hospital admission. She had moved money out of the joint savings account in 2 transactions, one 10 days before Marcus's heart attack and one the morning of, while the ambulance was on its way. I read the timeline in Patricia's office on a gray November morning, sitting across from her desk, and I kept my face the way I'd kept it for 30 years in a classroom. Level, unhurried. But I noted the date on the second withdrawal, and I wrote it in my notebook, and I closed the notebook, and I held what I knew. She had already been leaving before he collapsed. The heart attack had simply accelerated the schedule. Marcus did not say anything when I told him. He read the document himself, and then he set it on the kitchen table and made coffee and brought me a cup and sat down across from me. "I want to ask you something," he said. "Go ahead." "Did you suspect anything? Before? Did you ever see something I missed?" I thought about the honest answer. I thought about the Thanksgiving 3 years ago when Renee had been quieter than usual, and I had attributed it to work stress. I thought about the Christmas where she had been on her phone more than seemed right, and I had attributed it to her sister's ongoing difficulties. I thought about the small adjustments I had watched Marcus make over the years, accommodating himself to her moods, her distances, her periodic withdrawals, the way people in long marriages learn to navigate the weather of another person. I saw a marriage with difficulty in it, I said. I didn't see what was underneath. I don't think I was meant to. He nodded slowly. "I keep thinking I should have known," he said. "Knowing wouldn't have changed what she chose to do." "No," he said, "but it would have changed how unprepared I was." That was true, and I didn't pretend it wasn't. Being blindsided had cost him. It had cost him in ways that were financial and documentable, and in ways that were not, and both kinds of costs were real. I had spent 30 years teaching young people that the difference between the past and the present is that the past is fixed, which means there's a limit to how long it's useful to live there. I did not say this to my son. He was not a student, and this was not a classroom, and he was allowed to take the time he needed to be human before he was ready to be practical. I drank my coffee and let him sit with it. Renee's attorney contacted Patricia about the division of assets in December. The college fund issue was the central point of contention. Her attorney argued that it had technically been a joint marital asset. Patricia argued that its documented purpose, the contributions made specifically from Marcus's work bonuses over 6 years, and the timing of the withdrawal created a strong case for restitution. Renee's attorney came back with a settlement offer. Marcus rejected it. There was a second offer. Patricia reviewed it with Marcus on a Tuesday evening and called me afterward. "He's handling himself well," she said. "He was raised too," I said. "The second offer includes full restitution of the college fund, plus 60% of the remaining disputed assets." "What does he want to do?" "He said he wants to talk to you first." He called me 20 minutes later. I was in my apartment, the one I had moved into after his mother passed, the one with the view of the parking garage that I had eventually decided I did not mind. I was sitting in the chair by the window where I did most of my thinking. "Tell me what you're thinking," I said. "I'm thinking Lily's money is the only part that matters to me," he said. "The rest of it, the savings, the checking, I can rebuild that. I rebuilt it once before. I'm thinking if her college fund is protected, I can move forward." "Then that's your answer. You don't think I should push for more?" "I think you know what you can carry and what you can't, and I think you're 60% clearer about that than you were 6 months ago." He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "I want her to understand that she didn't leave me with nothing." "She didn't." "I know. I know what you need," I said, "and you're going to have it." The settlement was finalized in February. Lily's college fund was restored in full. Marcus received 60% of the disputed marital assets. The house refinancing went through in March, putting it solely in his name. I helped him paint the living room that April. He had chosen a color. Lily picked from a swatch book on one of her weekends, a warm gray that she called the color of a cloudy day that's about to get better. We painted on a Saturday, the two of us, with the windows open and a ball game on the radio, working in the comfortable silence of people who have shared enough time together to not need to fill it. At some point in the afternoon, Marcus said, without putting down his roller, "I've been thinking about going back to teaching." He had taught middle school science for several years before moving into a corporate training role for the money. I'd never said anything about it either way. It was his life to live. What brought that around, I asked. Lily, partly. She's been having a hard time at school. Not with grades, with the other kids. She said the teachers who help her most are the ones who actually listen. He paused. I thought I could be that. I was that once. You were good at it, I said. You always said teaching was a way of... He stopped himself. What was it you used to say? I thought about it. I had said many things over 30 years, and not all of them were worth preserving. I used to say that teaching was a way of telling the future that someone believed in it. He was quiet. Yeah, he said, that. We painted until the room was done. Then we cleaned the brushes and put the lids back on the cans, and I sat on the drop cloth in the middle of the floor while he went to get us something cold to drink. And I looked around the room, at the warm gray walls and the clean baseboards and the late afternoon light coming to the windows that Lily would walk through in 2 weeks when she came for her regular weekend. And I felt something I had not let myself feel very much in the past 8 months. It was not resolution, exactly. It was something quieter than that. There was the particular feeling of watching a thing continue past the point where you feared it might stop. Marcus came back with 2 glasses and handed me one and sat down on the floor across from me. Thank you, he said. I didn't ask him what for. It was a large enough word to cover a lot of ground, and I understood the ground he meant. I understood it the way you understand things at 63 that you could not have named at 30. That showing up is its own kind of statement, and that the people who show up without being asked are telling you something you don't always have the language to answer. Your mother would have been here doing this with us, I said. She'd have picked a better color. He laughed. It was the first real laugh I had heard from him in months, and it landed in the room like something physical. She absolutely would have, he said. I drank from my glass and looked at the gray walls. The color of a cloudy day that's about to get better. Lily had known exactly what she was naming. She was 9 years old, and she had inherited the habit of saying the accurate thing, the way certain things move through families without anyone teaching them. I sat there for a while longer, in the room my son and I had painted together, in the house that had his name on the deed now, and I thought about what it means to be old enough to have seen the worst of what the people you love can do to each other and the best of what the people you love can do for each other, and to understand that both are true at the same time, and that the second one is the one worth staying around for. I set down my glass. I nodded. That was enough.